So I looked at wrestling as an opportunity to reinvent myself and become something more than I was. And yet I never had the drive or anything, because even when I started lifting weights and I lost weight and I started getting into that, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. 5'9" at the time, and still not the biggest guy, not the strongest, not the fastest. It just wasn't in the cards,
And it
but I
was a
could
different
talk.
time, to be fair, too,
It was a different time. I broke in 2006. And what ended up happening was I was an ECW fan. Of course, went out of business in 2001 at the very beginning of the year, and it still had kind of a cult thing of people being a fan. In 2005, WWE owned it and put on a reunion show in New York City. Everybody that wasn't contracted to that used to work for ECW, put on a second reunion show the night before in Philadelphia at the new Alhambra, or whatever we're calling it now. It was the ECW arena.
Was that
And
Shane
so,
Douglas ran? I don't remember. I don't know if he
yeah,
ran
it
it
was
or
Shane
not.
Douglas, yes, and Francie.
Yep.
And so my cousin and I, being huge ECW fans, we got tickets to both shows. So I went down to Philadelphia to enjoy that show. And then the night after, New York City, and Ring of Honor, which essentially, if you get the history of it, Rob Feinstein started Ring of Honor and is no longer, of course, with it, because Rob Feinstein ended up being a problematic human being, which we will not touch on. But Rob used to sell bootleg compilation tapes at ECW Arena. And so we'd all buy these tapes. That's how we discover Mexico, Japan, all these things we could never see. Because again, the internet, not a thing back then. Now you can get it on YouTube and watch almost everything. But back then you had to get a VHS 4th generation, which means it's been copied from another VHS to another VHS. Not the best quality, not the best sound, but you were like, I feel like I'm experiencing something from another country that I get to watch in the car from my own home. When ECW folds, Rob Feinstein basically says, all my money's made by selling these ECW tapes, like the live events. I can't do that. What if I put on my own shows and just sell those? Ring of Honor is formed. And essentially, I knew the company, but I'd only seen maybe the first show of it ever, with the triple threat match with Low-Ki, Bryan Danielson, and was it Chris Daniels? Again, everything merges together. So the ROH puts on a show the afternoon of the New York City ECW reunion show for WWE, and we go, let's just go. First time I've ever seen Austin Aries, first time I've ever seen CM Punk, all these people that ended up being quite a thing in my existence, I got to experience for the first time for no other reason than they happened to be running a show in between 2 ECW shows that I wanted to go to. And there was a flyer on the seat about a wrestling school that Ring of Honor had. And I was like, this feels like I used to when I go to ECW shows. It had a vibe. It was athleticism. It was violence. It was edgy. They used legit music that I knew as entrance music. And it was an experience. So I started going to ROH shows from that point forward up in New England, being a Connecticut guy. And after a couple of them, I kept on seeing these flyers on the seats. And I'm really bad about the women I'm dating taking advice from them. And the person I was seeing at the time, she's like, you should go to this school. You love wrestling. You're a born entertainer. This is something you should do. And I was like, I don't know. I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then like 3 other people I knew said it. And I was like, all right, I should do this, which pissed her off to no extent, because it took a bunch of people that weren't her to tell me what was good for me. And she was absolutely right. And
It's
my
funny how that works,
ex-wife,
though.
I did it with my ex-wife too. She got pissed because she'd give me advice and I wouldn't listen, and then somebody else would. So apparently it's just how I'm wired. I don't trust people that are close to me because I just assume they're trying to be nice. So I took out a loan for $2,000. Bryan Danielson was the trainer at the ROH Academy at that time. I signed up, and thankfully my cousin, his friend was my friend, and he lived in Philly, which is right outside of Bristol, PA, where the ROH school was. And I would crash on my buddy's couch 3 nights a week. And I would train with Bryan Danielson, and I was horrible. I was absolutely horrible. He was and is one of the greatest athletes in professional wrestling. And this is the guy who trained me. And I did not put all the effort in that I should have. I could have literally done everything in the world to condition myself to get out of my own head, to learn, to evolve, to take opportunities as they were given to me. But I was just a pretty boy who was happy to be where I was and had a horrible attitude. and I failed miserably. And, that's how I ended up where I am today. An adult who realizes and looks back and says, hey, let me give advice to the younger guys about what not to do. Because now I'm a broadcaster that runs a wrestling company. But I
Honestly,
wanted to be a pro wrestler, and I failed.